Shabbat Shalom. All right, in admission, I am fundamentally incapable of retaining driving directions. It doesn't matter how many times you try to explain to me how to get from point A to point B. The moment you start speaking about lefts and rights, freeways and canyons, my brain shuts off. I know you're trying to be helpful, but what I'm doing is pretending to follow what you're saying, and then the moment I walk away, I plug the destination into my phone and follow every step of the GPS with complete faith and dependency. My mom, from whom I inherited this trait, calls it spatially challenged, which I like because it sounds sophisticated. On the very long list of things I don't understand, I'll share a few, some more serious than others. I don't understand why people leave their shopping carts in the middle of the parking lot. I know it's annoying to return them to the designated place, but it is the right thing to do. I don't understand. Okay, all right. Downhill from there. I don't understand anything beyond 7th grade math, or how to use power tools or sew, or how to maintain a regular exercise routine. I don't understand why we collectively seem to be incapable of treating the climate crisis with the urgency it demands. Why behavioral change is frustratingly stubborn even when the stakes are as high as it gets. I don't understand why I was so lucky to be born a Jew, to have my life so profoundly enriched by the gifts of this tradition, to be born into this family in this generation. I don't understand why nearly everyone in my grandparents' family was killed for this same identity. It's an interesting exercise, listing what lies beyond your understanding. I recommend you try it. It's revealing, a spotlight into the gaps of comprehension, or the limits of ability, or a changing world that leaves us out of step with what we once knew to be true. It forces us to confront why we don't understand the things we don't understand. Is it something innate or existential? Is it for lack of trying or will? Is it about the pace of change? Does it challenge our values, the way we believe the world ought to work? Is it because there's something fundamental about who you are and the experiences that shaped you that casts the veil of mystery over a different kind of experience? We understand who we are not just by what we know, but by what we don't know. Which is why I was intrigued this week by a mysterious midrash about Moshe and the limits of his knowledge. What can we learn about the greatest prophet to have ever walked this earth, the man who spoke face to face with God, from the gaps in his comprehension? The Midrash hooks us with a fascinating claim. Shlosha devarim nitkashu leMoshe, v'heram lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'etzba. 3 things Moshe found difficult, and the Holy One showed them to him with a finger. The Eluhein, and here they are. Ma'aseh hamenorah, v'hayareach, v'hashkatzim. The making of the menorah, the moon, and the insects. I hate to disappoint, but I should tell you now that I won't be speaking in this sermon about the moon or the insects because they're not connected to this week's Parsha. And more importantly, to be true to the spirit of the sermon, I won't be speaking out about them because I don't actually understand what's going on with those 2 examples. So the mystery of the moon and the insects will need to wait for another day. But the making of the menorah, what was difficult for Moshe to understand? And what's this business with God's finger? Now, before we continue on with this midrash and these questions, we have to zoom out for a moment to think about the context in which the menorah shows up in this week's Parsha. 2 weeks ago, in Torah reading time, The Israelites stood at the base of the mountain, overwhelmed by the experience of revelation. As I spoke about 2 weeks ago, God spoke the words of the 10 Commandments, and after each utterance, the Israelites recoiled in fear, running in the opposite direction, only to be brought back each time by the angels to the foot of the mountain. God spoke, the people listened, but a seed of uncertainty about this model of relationship was planted. We'll come back to that. Last week, as Rabbi Brous highlighted, the whole genre of Torah seems to shift. From narrative to law, covenant with God means behavioral expectations, means a standard of conduct that helps ensure the creation of a society that protects the vulnerable, that pursues holiness. And now, this week, yet another genre shift. 3 chapters detailing the design of the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle the Israelites are instructed to build in the wilderness. Meticulous detail about the materials and dimensions of this space, the outer courtyard and the inner courtyard, the holy and the holy of holies, wood and ram skins, gold and more gold, the ark for the tablets, the altar for the sacrifices, the table for the showbread, the woven cloth sewn into panels connected by 50 loops of blue wool with golden hooks to link them together. You get the idea. An elaborate design, all in service of a remarkable goal. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Not just a genre shift, but a paradigm shift. God moves from the peak of the mountain to the proximity of the Mishkan, to dwell among them in a whole new way. We'll come back to that as well. But first, back to the menorah that confounded Moshe Rabbeinu. What did he find perplexing? The Midrash continues. When Moshe ascended Mount Sinai, the Holy One showed him how to fashion the Mishkan. But when God showed him the making of the menorah, Moshe found it difficult. So God said, "Look, I'm fashioning it in front of you." What did God do? God showed him white fire, red fire, black fire, green fire, and of them fashioned the menorah, with its cups and knobs, its blossoms and 6 branches, and said to Moshe, "This is the work of the menorah, ze ma'aseh ha-menorah," pointing, so to speak, with God's own finger. Okay, let's break down the scene. God is the teacher, Moshe the student struggling to grasp the instruction. So God takes it step by step. I'll make it in front of you. Watch closely. The white fire goes here, the red fire there. This is how you do it. Pointing out how to get the job done, modeling the creative process. And we are left wondering, was the instruction effective? The Midrash continues. Nevertheless, Moshe found it difficult. So what did God do? God engraved it upon Moshe's hand and told him, "Descend and fashion it as I have engraved it upon your hand," as it is said at the end of the section in this week's parsha about the menorah. "Note well and follow the patterns for them that are being shown to you on the mountain." Perhaps, the teacher wonders, the difficulty is in retaining the information. You don't have to memorize every step of the process, Moshe. Give me your hand. Let me engrave the instructions into your palm. Consult the notes on your hand and build the menorah. So did this do the trick? The Midrash continues. Even so, he found it difficult. So the Holy One said to him, "Cast the gold into the fire, and it will be made automatically." So it is stated, with difficulty the menorah will be made. Miksha te'aseh ha-menorah. It was made of its own accord. Okay, first a technical explanation. The Midrash is playing with 2 textual oddities in the pshat, in the Torah verse. Miksha in the verse clearly means hammered, Make the menorah by hammering the solid block of gold into the shape of the candelabra. But miksha sounds like the Hebrew word kasheh, meaning difficult. Hence, the creative reread of the Midrash, with difficulty the menorah will be made. This word is really the springboard for the whole Midrash. The second oddity in the verse has to do with the shift from an active verb to a passive one. Stay with me, people. Ve'asita menorat zahav tahor miksha te'aseh hamenorah. You shall make a menorah of pure gold. The menorah shall be made of hammered work. This whole midrash exists in the gap between make something and it was made. It's like the crucial difference between I made a mistake and mistakes were made. By whom? By whom? In the space of ambiguity about who the active agent is in creating the menorah, this midrash inserts this conversation, this failed instructional moment between Moshe and God. But what's really going on here? What is it about the menorah that is so hard for Moshe to comprehend? That ultimately God needs to be the one who actually fashions the object. What is it about Moshe that prevents him from understanding the task at hand? I don't think Moshe's inability to perform the task has anything to do with skill. God models the creative process clearly and engraves the instruction manual into his hand. Throughout the Torah, Moshe demonstrates his ability to perform tasks much more complicated than this one. And I don't think the gap in comprehension stems from God's mysterious use of fire as a teaching tool. Recall that Moshe is actually quite accustomed to discerning God's message through the medium of fire, first at the burning bush and later at Mount Sinai. With gratitude to Rabbis Deborah Silver and Candice Levy for helping me get here, I think Moshe's inability to make the menorah has everything to do with the function of the menorah and the paradigm shift it represents. The opening words of next week's Parsha tells us that this menorah must be kindled perpetually. L'ha'alot ner tamid. But ner tamid doesn't mean what we think of today. It's not a flame that burns continuously. As Rashi explains, it means that the menorah must be lit every single evening to stay aflame until morning. And then every night, the ritual is repeated. Every new day requires a return to the place where God has chosen to dwell. Every day requires human initiative in fostering the connection with the divine. And that's what Moshe couldn't understand. Think about his life experience. Moshe is the paradigm of constant connection. Moshe has a fire permanently engraved on his hand by the finger of God, a sign of his unique, continuous relationship with the divine. Moshe is the address of God's initiated message again and again. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God speaks, Moshe listens. He cannot understand the need to build a menorah which must be rekindled every night, because for Moshe, the flame is never extinguished. But God recognizes that something about this model of relationship won't work beyond Moshe. Maybe it was the way the people recoiled from the foot of the mountain when God spoke. So God pivots, because God wants to be in relationship with us, both then and now. Make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Mishkan is a paradigm shift, not just in the divine coordinates, but in the nature of the relationship. It is the turning of the covenant to a new phase, one where God will no longer initiate every conversation, one of greater partnership between humanity and God, one where human initiative is necessary and imbued with sacred responsibility. The technology of the Mishkan effectuates this shift. The Mishkan introduces the altar, a new site of connection where anyone can come to seek atonement, to express gratitude, to find wholeness, a place to cry out to God. Today, our altar is our prayer, our deeds, our recommitment to relationship. The Mishkan introduces the menorah, that daily reminder that devotion is a spiritual practice that asks us to return to the table, return to the work of spreading God's light in this ever-darkening world. Our task is to rekindle the menorah every single day. Think for a moment about the miracle of Hanukkah, that little bit of oil that lasted 8 nights in that golden menorah. But how do we commemorate the miracle? We could light a flame that burns continuously for 8 nights. Okay, we have the technology, enough oil, a long enough wick, and wouldn't that be a more accurate recreation of the Hanukkah miracle? But that's not what we do. We come back to the windowsill every night and rekindle the flame. Tonight, and tonight, and tonight, I choose to be in sacred service. I don't understand why it feels some days like God is so hard to reach, so hard to hear, so difficult to find, even as you dwell among us. I don't understand why the burden we carry is at times unbearably heavy, even when your finger has the power to create something from nothing. I don't understand why some days coming back to the table feels like an impossible ask, even though the details of the design are so meticulously laid out. But I accept, within the mystery, the invitation to be your partner. I commit to recommit, especially now when the night is dark and the light must shine. Shabbat Shalom.